Hello, Rich. I can see you.
Hey, Martin.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
Are you back in Singapore?
yes, back in
Yes.
Singapore. And and yesterday I was in a famous restaurant and I saw all the billionaires that you have been talking about. Those probably that moved from from Dubai to Singapore. Oh,
Oh, really?
yeah. Is one of those restaurants on top of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, the one with the three towers.
Yeah.
And that's the place to be if you want to be seen or want to see and rich and whatever. And I have two friends in Singapore, so I brought them there because you have a very good view on the downtown.
Yeah.
And this place was full, it was packed, different from other occasions in the past years. This is
Sure.
full. Yeah. So Singapore is bustling because of the,
So, so what
yeah,
would a meal cost there?
mm, maybe $200.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, it's definitely on. And but now, so what do you get for $200? You get a pizza, a salad, and two glasses of wine.
What?
Yes,
So if you wanted a shrimp dish or a fish or lobster, oh, not
$60,
lobster.
$70. Lobster, $270.
Wow.
Hmm. Yeah,
No, it's all relative if you're wealthy.
yeah, sure. And my other question is, do we really want the lobster there? Because what we did is I brought them there, and then they tell you, yeah, because they know me, right? So I brought them there, and I said, okay, we just want to enjoy the view. And they say, yeah, no worries, no worries. Take a small place there. We have a small table for you three people. And what we need is we require you have a minimum expenditure of $30 for you three, and then you can stay as long as you want. And which is what we did. So we ended up with $60 for three people for three glasses of wine, plus a bottle of sparkling water and maybe spent an hour or so there, and my friends enjoyed the view. So, yeah,
Nice. Nice.
yeah, yeah. Hello, Carl. He doesn't speak. So, Rich, oh, we have a lot of things to talk about, right? Um, so I'm so glad that you contacted Dick Lee's widow and asked for permission to use his materials, and that's quite cool. Um, to clean up that and what I would suggest is that we put his materials on one of those um, eternal internet storages like the Wayback Machine and leave it there and then it's public and then let people decide what they do with it and put
Yeah, I don't want to go that far. Um,
okay,
I mean, I can suggest that to her that that should be done.
yeah,
Um, but I don't want to be the one responsible for doing that. But um,
and
yeah,
put
she was.
something put something there because I'm a with for my own works, right? I do it as follows. So if I die and if my heirs do not publish my works, then I'm fine if someone else does so, and I don't even care if they make profit from it, if they just do not alter those works.
Yeah, sure. No, that
Yeah.
it makes sense. I'm not saying I don't like the idea, but I just think that that's a separate decision from what she granted me
Mm.
permission to do, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah,
You
but
know, and she would probably go along with my suggestion.
Okay.
Let me tell you about the conversation that I had with Len. Her name is
Okay.
Lynn, Lin.
Okay.
Um, she she asked me to explain, the whole relationship with Tomb and that whole aspect.
Yeah.
So I did the best I could on that, and I introduced, you and your name and your background and the German living in Singapore, and she got a chuckle out of that. And then, we talked about, basically the course at Tomb. And I told her, I said, this is in the beginning stages. This is, not anything that's happened yet. But I said, I don't have a introductory date for the first course or anything of
Yeah.
that nature yet.
And
But,
there is none so far. There is none so far.
So, but I told her that, you're a grad there from, TUM Germany, and a little bit about your engineering background and so on and
Okay.
so forth. And, you're a patent attorney now and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So, and then I told her, I said, Germany is, our focus tends to be very German. And, um, and we're all sort of, in the belief that, we need to sort of help Germany any way we can to, sort of bring them back to prosperity because they're really getting hit, with
Yes.
the downturn. And then she reminded me of something that was very interesting.
Okay.
She goes, do you remember, Dick's conversations with Volkswagen? And I said, yeah, I do actually, now that you mention it. And Dick was, and this was before we started this electric vehicle takeoff and landing, vertical takeoff and landing
Yes.
project. We had been pursuing the folks at Volkswagen to help with them go through some innovation process. And Dick had a tremendous relationship with a little gentleman there that was in charge of innovation and for all of Volkswagen. And he was an executive on the board and blah blah blah.
Okay.
So in that conversation, she was just reminding me about that, how resistant they were at Volkswagen to have Dick and his colleagues, come in and to talk to them and assist, and how they were, basically, hey, we know what we're doing. We don't need any outside guidance. We don't need any outside input. And he was just very, just he appreciated the idea, but he was just really resistant to any kind of outside exposure, to their innovation. And and then she said, but look where that got him. And
Yes.
and she said, they're in deeper trouble now than they were then. And I said, yeah, that's true. So she was very much up on that whole scenario. And then she did say to me that, she was certainly aware of, our work in the vertical takeoff and landing, electric aircraft. Um, and we didn't dive deep into that, but she was aware of that project because that was the last thing Dick was working on before he became ill. And but she's very much impressed with the idea and I mean that sincerely, impressed with the idea of us working with TUM to bring this forward to help, spur, that next generation of entrepreneurs and the next
Yes.
generation of innovators.
Okay.
And she was, very congratulatory to me, and she wanted me to pass that on to everyone involved in that. And she said, any way you want to use Dick's works. And then we talked about, some documentation and, that kind of thing. She said, but
Okay.
any way that you want to use, his works, as long as you're doing it, I give you permission to do that.
Okay, cool.
And then she, excuse me?
Yes, I like the idea. If you sit on this one and you're the trustee for that estate or part of the estate, is very cool. I like it.
Yeah. So, she then, went on to tell me that, which I wasn't aware of, this Nina Goodrich that is, basically on there as an author with Dick. She said she didn't have anything to do with the book at all.
But she
Um,
appears on the title. I have the book right in front of me.
yeah, I know. And I said, well, do you remember, how she even got onto the book? If that's the case. I always thought that she contributed, some of the process, right?
Okay.
And she said, no, she was a client of Dick's, which I knew. And after she left the herbicide company, and I think it was it's in the book, Ambac or
Yeah.
Ampac or something like that. After she left them, she went on to, a different position in a different company, and she then started down this whole different path, and she was very adamant about, Dick, I'm done. I'm on to something else that I'm, eager to work on. And so I'm through that innovation stuff, and so she sort of turned a new leaf and went a whole different direction. Um, and then there was another thing that she shared with me, which was um, Tom Weller, and he was an executive at Chevron,
Mm-hmm.
and really credited, and he was on our vertical takeoff and landing, program as well. Um, and Tom's the one that contacted me about Dick's passing. But in any event, Tom was in charge of bringing Dick involved and getting him involved at Chevron to um, look at a different approach to how they could use innovation to, radicalize their oil discovery process and refining and marketing and all different aspects of the company.
Okay.
Um, so, he has a long history with Dick as well, much longer than mine. And he then, and she then went on to say that he was really the person and the impetus behind um, pushing Dick to write a book.
Okay.
And to get that documented and get it out of the 3-ring binder, that he used for course materials and that type of thing. I went through, so that's sort of the background, and I asked her, I said, well, should I make contact with Tom and ask, for, a release from him? And she said, no. And she says, I don't think you need to do that with Nina either, because, Lynn was actually the editor of the book. She's a English major by training and by
Ah,
education.
that makes sense now. So she contributed to the format and to the language.
Yeah, yeah. And so she, basically she said it was the two of them that really did the book. And but it was Tom Weller that was really the catalyst behind Dick actually sitting down to do it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I would yeah, the book is one thing, but the other thing is the course materials that you have, and you attended 3 trainings or so with them.
Yeah, I attended 2 actual training sessions, and I have the book. It was the same book for both,
Yes.
even though they were a couple years apart. Um, and I've got the one sitting in front of me right now, and that was dated January 24, 25 of 2013.
Okay.
So, and that's the same visit that I got introduced to Tesla, the car Tesla was
Oh,
on that trip. We went to a Tesla showroom there outside of Denver, which is like one of the top showrooms in the nation in the US for selling Teslas, as it turns out. And and then we went across and it was located in a mall. And that's how different their approach was. It was not a standalone dealership location. It was in the
okay.
mall.
Okay.
And across the way from Tesla, the store, as they called it, was the Apple store.
Okay.
And so we went from the Tesla showroom store across the hallway to, and this is a group of like 20 of us, right? And then we went into the Apple store, and Dick was sort of leading us through, the parallels in the design and the concept of the 2 stores, right? And they very much mirrored one another. Um, so that was an interesting thing. But I mean, that's back in 2013, right? Um, now they have standalone, dealership locations,
Yes.
etc. So I mean,
Okay.
they've matured, significantly since then. But this is the early days of Tesla and in the marketing of the car, and that's when, I mean, I was just like, I was blown away by that. They actually had a chassis without the batteries in it, but they had a chassis of the one of the Tesla S cars there, with 4 wheels on it, etc. So you could see, and sort of get a feel for the quality of the manufacturing of it.
Uh,
Look at the welds and that kind of thing, which were pretty interesting because you know in my career I spent a lot of time at one juncture in the welding area, so I was looking at that pretty intensely. Um, and So it was, sort of an intriguing socialization of the Tesla at that point.
okay.
And the stock was like $32 a share then.
I don't know
So,
how much is it today?
oh, today it's 350 or so, 340, something like that.
And any splits over the years?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if you
Okay.
would have put, and I told a lot of people that I knew, buy Tesla. Some did, some didn't. Um,
Okay.
some And my neighbor that did next door, he was just like, "Oh my God, I made a lot of money off of that recommendation."
See, so he's very happy with you. Very good. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, but that sounds then like a plan. So you thought about this, and I would say that you use that to generate the content for one of the lectures, and I believe is a very important message. And most people don't even are not even aware of the mechanism of um, thinking about with whom are you talking when you're trying to make a sale, a conversion, right? It's all about the conversion part. And you have a traffic, and now you need to qualify the people that you're talking with, and maybe you can even steer the traffic such that you have a better conversion rate. But the conversion would always follow those 3 questions. And that's why I find it so. Who has to fix the problem? Who stands to lose financially if it's not fixed? And who sees the value? And only if the 3 are combined in the same in the same person, sales is very, very easy. And
Yeah.
so and
Yeah, I
people-
can go through this and create a, you know, a course,
yeah,
you know, a
just
lecture
start with
course.
just or maybe we even put you into a ICI meeting, which is on a larger scale. Same audience is here, but not 4 or 5, but maybe 40 or 50. And
Yeah, sure.
yeah, I believe that's a good start. Is 1.5 hours, and then you give your presentation. You can use slides and whatever, and you tell your story about where this comes from, and why you are there and doing that. I would love that format. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's quite good. Then with the Credentilix, the platform, we still have our Cargo Cobra, and it's quite interesting how different innovation partners would see their role and how they want to bill for what they're doing. Of course, everybody needs to bill and to collect money, because this is why we are doing this. But um, the first one is a startup, and I told you the interesting issue is that the Singapore government is investing $400,000 into that startup because they believe in it. But the way Singapore government does it, they issue only 20% upfront, which is 80,000, and the other 320,000 are only paid upon completion of the project. And with that promise in your pocket, you need to go around and find people who help you to finance and bridge the gap between the 80,000 ending and the final reimbursement of the project. And I believe that the service providers, the innovation partners, they need to be part of that equation. And if we do pre-sales, then they should be the ones who get paid first, together with the suppliers who provide the hardware and whatever is necessary. Maybe also the wages for the workers that are there. So all these should be on the same level, but you cannot expect a fixed payment plan that you promise those innovation partners to get paid within 3 months of triggering the project. I believe that's not how it should be, especially if we work for startups, because I believe it's enough if you know that ultimately there would someone who guarantees for the expenditure, that you can, how to say, delay collection of those invoices until that happens. At least that's my expectation. Or am I wrong?
I wouldn't say you're wrong. It's a good hypothesis.
Yeah. Yeah. And now we go around and find law firms who are willing. I found one law firm, they say, okay, we do this, but we want 25% extra for waiting 2 years. And they say, no, you will not wait 2 years. And I say, well, we have experience with that. 2 years happens often. These startups, so horrible. And then, yeah, I mean, at least they have experience. And then they say, okay, 25% more, but they can pay over a period of 2 years' time. And yeah, and they get more and more ideas in. There's one startup from Australia, and they use AI for faster hotel bookings for business travelers who know that they need a hotel somewhere and they want to save on the hotel costs, and they just say, I need to be there, and then the AI would go through all the databases of hotel rooms and give you a good and valuable deal near the target where you are, and you get all this done within 5 minutes time, as compared with 1 hour if you use conventional hotel booking sites and Google Maps for finding out where you place yourself. And same model for them. They say, so what would we sell if we sell vouchers? And I say, I mean, you can, like the Cargo Cobra, you buy a voucher, and for $10 voucher, you can buy $100 value of the final product if it's out. So if the product is 1 million, you buy now vouchers for 10,000, and that would give you a discount of 100,000 later when you buy the robot. So you get a 9% discount for paying now $10,000, for example. And then he said, oh, but that doesn't work because we only have 10% margin for the hotel rooms. So the idea was then, so why don't we develop the voucher model into something? You buy $1,000 now, and then for the next 5 years, you get 10% discount, which means the purchase price on all hotel bookings for the coming 5 years. And that then it becomes more like a timeshare program, but much cheaper. For $1,000, you get the purchase price for hotel rooms. And I believe is a better deal than going for timeshare programs. And they found that viable and doable and a good way of doing this. And yeah, that's another example. I believe that AI will make life very difficult for the known hotel booking services.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I get more and more. So, and then I found out what can I do in order to make onboarding smoother, because I cannot use 10 hours of my time on a daily basis to decide which startup would qualify and which one not. So I trained a GPT, a custom GPT, where people can upload their business plan, and then they can discuss with the GPT whether it qualifies or not until they have a business plan that qualifies. And the manual on how to use that GPT is on the Credentialix website.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's meant to be that they self-qualify until it works. And the GPT is quite cruel in the language. Yeah. Yeah. So we have also Joe here. Joe, your data rooms is a crucial component of all that.
I did send emails, haven't seen any responses yet.
Okay. I remember that I saw your WhatsApp, and I put you into our ticketing system, I hope. And this is so much, but yeah. Can you please explain a bit how does this work? So
Sure. I will. How about this? I'll tell you a little bit of why the pain point was my pain point and why I bothered. It was a
okay.
lot of copying and cutting parts of Excel documents into other documents to make what one would call living documentation. The most common one is quotes, as an example. If you change the price on parts inside of your database, this way it'll cascade all the way through to your quotes. And so alternatively, you could save a whole bunch of siloed documents inside of a SharePoint or a network drive. But what I found is that's a lot more clicking in order to get the task done. So where I built it was on Microsoft Dynamics 365. It's a Microsoft Enterprise app. And when I first purchased it for myself, I learned that it didn't work out of the box. That you needed a third-party integrator or basically a DevOps team in order to integrate something to be useful. Like the very basic fields were not there. And I've come to take it that it's almost a monopoly prevention thing, that if they are not the one that redoes apps that someone else might have, they prevent themselves from being in a monopoly lawsuit by having a third party be the one that provides the apps. So given that, I applied and got an app published in the Microsoft App Store. and it's given me the access to redistribute Microsoft licenses. So the business model is basically a Microsoft license distributor with providing a working application that allows you to help define the box of a system that you are scoping out and quoting to your customers. I primarily lean on this for made to order or customized systems that might be repeat customers over the next years. And so that way I have a history of products that I'm matching to customers' assets.
Okay, but down to the very ground level, what investors would expect is that they get some an access to an online directory where they can sign up if they present the vouchers or the blockchain tokens, and then they can read the information that is there, and that storage room would be updated with company data that comes from the company, the CEO. Is a very functional thing, and actually is more like a library than a piece of software. Or do you have? I don't know where you're coming from.
What I found is the documents that you would place inside of that library should really be updated in your database, and then you can regenerate those documents to live data versus having a document that is out of date inside of your. Right. So my belief is that I have no more documents. I don't store an Excel table. I don't store a Word document ever anymore. I might save it before I can send it as an email because I'm going to proofread that the format after the AI regenerated. I'm not going to call it AI. After the the machine code regenerates it from the data, then it might have, it's using an extra line or causes the page break in the wrong spot. So you still are probably best to look at it before sending it directly versus, so proofread whatever your machine puts out before you send it to customers. Though if it's inside of that database, the easiest way is to permission a person with an email account and permission into that database. And that's essentially access to all the information from quotes, orders, and invoices is what can be stored easily.
Okay. Rich, does that sound attractive to you as an investor?
I might put it from the other side. What's most useful, I guess, to the consumer portion, the business side, not the investor side, is the customer relationship management software that it's built on. So inherently, most companies need a CRM, a customer relationship management software, in order to have workflow with their customers.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that goes hand in hand, right? Because customers are those who do who contribute to the pre-sales, right? So I believe the Credentilix database with the vouchers and those who access the data rooms is of utmost importance, because those are those customers that have put money on the table without receiving the product or service yet.
Yeah,
So,
that what Joe, what you described is not the traditional data room.
I don't disagree.
Huh?
I don't disagree. It might be more appropriate actually to silo off the side of the business that uses the CRM portion, and then yeah, we could spin up a SharePoint as an example, and every document that belongs in it will essentially be generated out of a CRM. So we could store it inside of a folder structure if that's that would prevent, say, investors or customers kind of going upstream and seeing all the cost of build.
Yeah, let's not get into the weeds about how to build it. I think it's more important to understand what's in it and what makes up the data room that, in Martin's world, would make sense, and from an investor standpoint. And I mean, they're looking for financial information. They're looking at pending orders. They're looking at cash flow. They're looking at P&L. All the traditional financial metrics, if you would, along
Investors
with
would, but would your crowdfund people be looking at the cost that you're purchasing their products before you manipulate them and sell them? So there's kind of like a break between the investors would want P&L, where I don't think go ahead.
You're getting way too granular. I mean, it needs to be structured in a way that, I mean, your cap table is on there. That's one tab. Your financials, are another tab. So you can look at, cost of goods versus, sales and so on and so forth, and go through all the, EBITDA, calculations, and cash flow, calculations, and, what's your burn rate, all those kinds of things is, what should be in a cap table, or excuse me, in a data room. And they're all broken up into various tabs that organize that as a data room, right? And when you come into it, you're looking at a flow chart of, basically, where do you want to surf to? Do you want to look at, the current finances? You click on the financials, and that brings up a current, P&L based on, NetSuite's, calculations, right? You can see, day-to-day margins and immediately, right? And you can see, what the order histories are. And certainly see, the top 10 customers, under another tab, and the percentage of, their, impact on the business. And then look at your cap table, who's on the cap table, and, what percentage do they have, and all the attributes, related to a cap table. I mean, so there's many things that go into that data room, and everything that you're describing is well outside of that.
I would say what I'm describing is everything that is upstream in the workflow that feeds into the orders and P&L, and it is the most time-consuming portion of the work. I think the P&L just becomes a report out of this thing. It is just a drop down, print the P&L.
Yeah, but a company that's using like NetSuite,
Yes.
I mean, those are immediately generated, right? And they're updated, on a daily basis. And I shouldn't even say daily. I mean, they're real time. So
Yes. So that's also what I recommend. I only could believe it when I saw it, but introducing NetSuite into our own company changed a lot, because the whole company suddenly is geared up for making profit. And it's just the software that does that, because we were the same team before, but from one day to the other, suddenly you had KPIs that were relevant, and before you hadn't. The KPIs came with a delay of 3 months or so from a tax accountant, a tax advisor or accountant. But the NetSuite.
But do those P&Ls include all the quotes that have not translated into orders? Because there are KPIs missing of conversion.
Okay, if you go so far, then you're deep in the crystal ball reading of the marketing people. Yes, I've seen that, because the NetSuite that we are using also comes with a CRM, and you can put in opportunities, and you can put a value to that opportunity and the likelihood, how likely it is to become to become real, and then you can derive something, but that is not really what investors are looking for. Investors are looking for performance and not for wishful thinking. So I don't think that this is, I mean, you can put this as part of the data room, but what I can tell you is that the closer that a startup goes to bankruptcy, the more promising these figures become. And it's probably wishful thinking.
Mind if I ask what the rough implementation of your NetSuite was?
You mean how much money I paid for that?
Relatively. You can spitball it in the, tens of thousands if you want.
Yeah, I mean, you pay for the software that is very cheap for getting in, and it pay. Well, if I take everything together, maybe a very large 5-digit amount. Yeah, but not 6-digit. And over the time, I believe we pay something like, yeah, high on the high side, a 5-digit amount for license fees per year. Yeah.
Another 5-digit for license fees. That
Yeah.
makes sense about.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on how many users you end up with it.
Yeah. The ones that use NetSuite is something like a dozen or so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's at the point where no implementation cost, except for currently Microsoft would recommend I list it at 3,000 a month for 25 users.
Yeah, but okay,
But
it's
then you don't
9,000.
have the high, but then you don't get the high 5-digit number to implement it, is my point. The point is that is where I'm bringing this product is so that way I get rid of your implementation cost when you go to deploy the database.
Yeah, but it's a bit jumped short because the implementation cost is not only what you pay for consultants to implement this, but also what you lose for work not done. So the company, while you implement such a CRM and such a ERP system, the implementation cost is not only what you pay out to get it done, but also the work that is not done. You may call it opportunity costs or something like that, but
That opportunity cost is the number one thing I hear about going to seek for investors is, hey, anytime that you go to spend to raise money, you are losing the opportunity cost of going to find customers.
yeah, that's why I think that doing pre-sales is a much better option than looking for investors, because on the long run, this will help you to survive, and also you make immediate revenue without giving away equity. So sales and pre-sales is always the better way to use your time, I believe. And looking for investors is nice, but but if you overdo it, then you end up as someone who is very good in winning new investors, but not good in creating a business that is sustainable. Yeah, that's what I see from far over the many years. I've seen many startups that were perfect in raising funds from investors, and ultimately, when the investors wanted to see returns, there was nothing because these people were only trained to find new investors for the existing company, and they played all sorts of games with them, doing market development and product development, and then doing diversification and breakthrough innovation and whatever and ultimately this is what I've seen in the more than 100 bankruptcies in my life as a patent attorney from others. So I do not recommend to train to look for investors. I rather recommend look for buyers for your products. And that's where Credentilix stems from. Yeah. So, but in times, but what I can tell you that we had about 20 years of falling interest rates in all aspects, and to a degree that money became so cheap that you just had to say, I have a business idea, and then someone was throwing $1 million at you. That was about 10 years ago. And now with the interest rates going back to natural levels, this stops. And now what you see is that all those ventures that were only surviving because money was so cheap and investors didn't expect that anything is paid back, this becomes more normal. And then the old values of the past century, they come back. And the economy that all the young people went through, I mean, everyone who is younger than 40 only knows the times when money was cheap. And these times are over, definitely. Because money is now as scarce as it was before 1999 or so, before the dot-com bubble started. And yeah, this is what I also see. And with the fall or the decline of this cheap money source, also all the participants, the market participants in between where the rubber hits the road and where the capital is generated, they all are pushed out like venture capital firms. Venture capital firms are people who take a loan from an institutional investor and they put it into what we know as the startups community or whatever. Yeah, and maybe others, but venture capital was about innovation mostly. And now what I see in the market is that all these venture capital companies, they have I wouldn't say that they go bankrupt because I don't know what they do in order to hedge the risk that they have taken, but I can see that they are not as liquid as they were before. And this is another impact of the raising interest rates that we see all over the world. I mean, this is the big picture as seen from someone who is in this business since 30, I don't know, 5 years or so. So the past 20 years were very, very, very unusual. And now we are going back to what is normal. And
some of this in my area, we talk about this as a regional problem in two ways. We say that the West Coast of the United States had so many startups and basically billionaires, millionaires that exited, that they are over evaluating a lot of the startups, and that you can get cash and $30 million evaluations, when if you're in the Midwest, you're going to have maybe a $15 million evaluation. You have half the evaluation. And so the cutthroat of needing the company to grow in value for the next round of investors is a lot less likely when you already start your evaluation at 30 million, where money is more ripe in the areas where money is thrown around, like there is excess of it. And then we also say that in our region, the number one thing that would jumpstart our startup ecosystem would be someone exiting, and thus creating enough people that had the investment class to invest. So we're kind of at a chicken and an egg, but also in our area, the companies that do start up are more lean, and they're much more likely to succeed in comparison to the ones on the West Coast. So they're evaluated at less dollar, but more successful.
No, but there's a very tactical approach. You look at it from someone who is in the trenches in war language. I look at it more from a strategic point of view, where the money comes from and where it goes. And investors' money always expects returns. And as an investor, you have the choice between something low risk, then you go for a government bond, or something high risk, and then you can invest directly into innovation or go through other vehicles. And there are those in the midst who try to do both. And they have the venture capital is not around for such a long time. It has not been common in the last century. It only became common in the early years of this century. And I can see that we go back to where we were in the last century, because interest rates are going so high. So money is no longer as as available as it was 10 years ago. That's a strategic view. And for you may see that there's a difference between the East Coast and the West Coast and the Midwest, but as seen as a whole, it's more difficult in general worldwide than 10 years ago. And within the US, yes, there may be differences, but what I can tell you also is that the US as such is much better than the rest of the world together when it comes to financing innovation, because money somehow seems to be more easily available in the US.
That's because if you make money in the US, it is cheaper to make money. Or sorry, it costs you less in taxes to make money off of capital gains than it does off of wages.
Yeah.
You will pay more if you made the same exact money, well, essentially, as long as you make over a certain bare bones minimum, then you're going to end up paying more making it as wages than you would as gains. So we're at the point where I think the US is incentivizing that you no longer work for an employer, that you work for your own company and you start passing through some of your own company's gains to yourself, and that you
Yeah.
reduce your wages. We're getting to a very weird taxation policy here.
I don't know whether this is taxation or not. What I can tell you is, if you have a certain business plan, it's much easier in the US to get capital from a bank or from an investor than it is in the rest of the world. This is a fact. I know people who do business both in the US and outside, and they all say the same thing. And I don't know, but let's hear what the other seniors here in the group say. We have Michael here, who hasn't said anything today, and Rich, and both are very experienced people.
Hello, Martin. I didn't realize you changed your time, so I came in just 10 minutes ago, so I'm 40 minutes late. I apologize.
No worries.
So anyway, one example per Joe's comment. So I collected on a patent infringement. I only had to pay 15% capital gain because it was an out-of-court ordered settlement, and the inventor in the US has the rights, instead of declaring it as ordinary income at 38% that year, I only paid 15%. So I don't know what it's like in Germany, Martin. If you get a windfall on a patent infringement,
They don't have it.
case.
Income's
Sorry,
income.
Joe. Well, I wanted to hear from Martin, Joe, because you may know about Germany, but I want to hear from the horse's mouth. And Martin, if you have a windfall, let's say specific to a patent that you had for your mosquito trap, and someone copied it, and you got a million euros. How would you pay taxes on that? At what rate?
There's no fixed rate. It depends very much on the total income for the year. And the
Okay,
income,
well, in the US, the IRS allows inventors to separate it and treat it separately as capital gain at
no,
only
it's not.
15%.
No,
Well,
no, no.
see, so Joe's point is well taken. The US is very liberal in terms of taxation when it comes to intellectual property. And I
Yes.
found another examples. There are cases where I get an honorary consulting fee and it's totally tax-free. It's paid as an honorarium. It's not even treated like gambling winnings. It's absolutely tax-free. So
No, no.
in Germany, if you give a speech and TUM pays you
Yes.
10,000 euros, do you pay taxes on that, or is it considered an honorary fee?
No, of course you pay taxes for that.
Well,
It's very
here
normal.
we don't. Here we don't. We just take the money and run. Yeah.
Yeah. That I mean, I'm recommending to my son, go to the US and try to work there, and he's doing that. I'm very serious. After looking back on this, on my life, and I believe if you have the choice in general, I believe the US is the best place to be.
Martin, I want to give another example. Then the other people in the audience might make a comment. In the
Yeah.
last 2 weeks in the United States, there's strong consideration at the Supreme Court to enable a restaurant owner to treat tips and taxes as totally separate from the credit card fee. So if you go into a restaurant in the US and you spend $500, you put it on your credit card, you add 20% tip for $600. That credit card company in the past would take, let's say, 3% of that 600. Now, if the Supreme Court votes in favor of Trump's idea, the tax and the tip have to be separated. So MasterCard and American Express can't get any fee off the tax and the tip. So what do you think of that? And it's worth billions in the US economy, billions.
I don't know. I believe you I believe each country has their own demons, and you need to know them. And if I look at I don't know, a few months back I saw statistics saying that the investment into startups in the US alone is bigger than the rest of the world combined. And that says something, right? And it's not all venture capital.
That goes along my lines of we had enough businesses that exited, so there's that many more that can invest into the next round.
Yeah. It's a bit
And
like
because when they exit, they are not taxed on a graduated, on an increasing scale of how much wages you earn. If they do it as a gain, 15%.
Okay. Yeah, see. Yeah, I mean you can okay, I believe I live in heaven as far as this is concerned, because Singapore is 0% capital gains tax. 0. And yeah, you can shift it to patents or whatever you want, or you pay your profit. You can also pay your profit outside of Singapore, is also not taxed.
Well, Merton, in the US, we had capital gain on real estate. So 50 years ago, if someone sold $1 million house and their adjusted basis was only 300,000, they would pay 700,000 as capital gain.
Okay.
In other words, yeah. So, and I don't know what Joe may know, but I forgot if that gain is at 15%, Joe, on real estate. But now you can end up leaving a $500,000 real estate gain to your heirs, or I think you can just pocket the cash and you don't pay tax on the first $500,000, estate tax or income tax or capital gain. You don't pay anything anymore.
Or if you live in it for 2 years and make up to an extra $500,000, then you're charged nothing as long as you held the property and lived in it for 2 years. And so we're at the point where
it never used to be
builders,
that way, Joe. It used to be the IRS
builders
would nail you. Yeah.
Builders will, every 2 years, they will move their address as a point, because they will build a house, they'll live inside of that address, and they'll hold that house, and they will sell that home without gains for their business. So one of their ways that they can pocket more money is by moving every 2 years, so that way they can use this tax loophole.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know this, because a friend of mine, he's exactly doing that, and he's doing YouTube videos about that. And I was always wondering, why are they doing this?
Why?
Yeah.
Gains, capital gains. I'm telling you, the difference between Germany taxes and the United States taxes is a huge reason why you have more Mittelstand.
Okay. I don't see the connection yet, but please elaborate more.
Once money can aggregate, can go through a certain pathway at less resistance, it's going to go that pathway. So more money is going to be made into the hands of people with capital gains. And so much so, this is something that really pisses me off, is there's a whole bunch of tax loophole things that if you put money into a, let's call it we call them an opportunity zone. 50% of the land of every state got to be chosen. What's an opportunity zone? Actually, it was 25% of the land. So if you bought a property and you put your money into it and you run a business out of it, and 10 years later you sell it, you pay no capital gains. But guess what? You can only put money that was made from capital gains. A person cannot put money that was made from a salary. So if I make, let's say, $500,000 in salary, I can't qualify to put my money in this tax-free haven. If I made $500,000 in capital gains money off of a patent or something, I can qualify for tax-free systems. So this perpetuates those that make money off of gains can collect more money.
Okay, I don't want to become creative here, because I see already how this can be done. So Yeah, it all depends on investing your money smart, and that is different from country to country. And what I can tell you is that in Singapore is much easier than in Germany, and probably um, the US is even easier than Germany. But maybe you need to be a bit creative when you're working in unemployment. And yeah, but that applies to every country in this world, because employees have a salary, while entrepreneurs or business owners, they have capital and they make profit, and they live off the profit, and that's a different game. So going back, that's why I'm here. I'm promoting innovation, because innovation, except for the serial innovators, is done by entrepreneurs. So I didn't even talk about the entrepreneur test yet. I promised I wanted to enlighten you. But yeah, we are doing that one in German now, and trying to get a big email campaign out to attract German Mittelstand companies. But I will tell you about this next time. Our time for today is over. Tomorrow is Good Friday, Easter. I wish you a very nice Easter weekend. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope to see you next week again. And goodbye.
Happy Easter, Martin.
Happy Easter. Thank you for
Thank you,
coming.
Martin.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Easter, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.